Welcome everybody to the Social Dig, the greatest underrated show on the World Wide Web. I am your host, Mr. Rob G, and as always, we'll be digging into the topics that keep you talking and the talk that keeps you thinking. We're going to get into talking about alien contact. What's the game plan? Do we have a game plan? What are we going to do? What happens when it finally comes to fruition that these things are here? Now, they might be good, they might be bad, we don't know, but we'll be going over some of those ideas today. Let me go ahead and bring in my guy Mateo. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up, Rob? Hello, everybody. Good to be here. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Also, we have a special guest today, so we're going to go ahead and bring in the man, Mr. Phoenix Lights. Mr. Tom King.
Mr. Tom King.
Hey, how you doing?
Tom King.
All right. So glad you could join us today, Tom. Thanks for coming through.
No problem. Let's have some fun on Friday night.
Let's have some fun because it's Friday Night Live. It is TGIF.
Right.
So let's go ahead and get into it, man. Actually, we have some new stuff though. Actually, let me show the audience what we're working with here. So we have a new segment that we're not necessarily even a segment, just an addition to the show. So it's called Ask the Chat. So during the shows, live shows from here going forward, we're going to go ahead and get you guys to go ahead and join the conversation. So you're going to hear an Ask the Chat, and I'll go ahead and let you hear that in a little bit here. But at that point, we're going to pose a question. And then just go ahead and interact with us. You can leave the answer in the chat. You can actually call the message line that we have set up, 856-843-3444. That's 856-THE-DIG. And yeah, just go ahead and join the conversation. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get this party started and jump into our disclosure news. All right, disclosure news. So we're going to keep the theme up here as you see on the screen. Is disclosure heating up? Is disclosure heating up? What do you got for me, Mateo? What do you got?
Oh, absolutely, man. It's red hot right now. It's on fire.
It's on fire. What do you think? What do you think, Tom? How do you feel about disclosure right now? Do you feel the love? Do you feel the motion, the movement?
Well, this is amazing time that we're going through, and I agree with Mateo. It's on fire. These are not boring times. This is times when UFOs are making headlines, and it's not a side story buried. There's a hell of a lot of momentum going on now, and we're living through times that have happened before, where this has happened in the past, and they thought, okay, they're going to come out, only to have the Lucy Charlie Brown football and the rugs pulled out from under you. So it's really exciting to see this happening, but I'm also very skeptical we're going to get any of the results we're looking for.
Yeah. Mateo and myself, we talked about that last episode. We were like, this time last year, disclosure seemed to be heating up as well. So you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. However, I think we have some things that'll kind of kick us over the line, hopefully. So we're going to get started with, this is probably something that I'm sure you guys have already heard about, but Ross Coulthard talking about the giant UFO in a building. So he was with Project Unity, and I'll go ahead and read the conversation that they had. Just took an excerpt here, so we'll go ahead and bring it up on the screen. So Ross says, in part, the amendment that Mr. Gallagher has put up, which is essentially saying No funds authorized to be appropriated by the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 24 may be obligated or expended directly or indirectly, in part or in whole, to conduct or support any activity relating to unidentified anomalous phenomenon that is controlled under a classified program that has not been formally, officially, explicitly, and specifically described, explained, and justified to the appropriate congressional committee's conditional leadership. It gives holders of non-Earth origin or exotic UAP material 6 months to make it available to the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And Project Unity says, yeah, but Ross, doesn't that just give them 6 months or more to hide it? Ross states, okay, people are going to question what I'm about to say. What if some of it is so big it can't be moved? Project Unity, is that what you're saying, Ross? Is that what you've been told? Ross says, that's exactly what I'm saying. Project Unity says, well, how big is big? Ross says, big. So big that they built a building over it in a country outside of the United States of America. Let's just see what happens. Let's test these allegations before the Congress. It's very, very easy for people to oh, there's no evidence. Oh, goodness me. Let's just go away and ignore it. Let's test it. We haven't even got there yet. There's a whole cadre of supported experts on social media who are saying it can't be, therefore it isn't. And that's been the default for so many years. So, fellas, what do you think about that? I'm sure you heard this quote, and how did you feel about this conversation?
I'll go first here. I actually watched this premiere when it happened with Jay on Project Unity, and I was like, oh boy, here comes Ross with another bombshell. Because he knows people, and we all know he knows people, and we all do also know that he knows things that he can't share with us, and we understand that he has to respect his sources. But this one was real interesting, and of course it caused a big reaction. And he got asked about it again in some of his follow-up interviews. Here's what my gut's telling me. I have a feeling that this other country where this is located is somewhere in his country. It's in Australia. This is just a guess on my part. I just felt like he was so confident with what he said. I said, I bet you this is in Australia someplace. I don't know. Like I said, I'm guessing. But yeah, he did also get asked, will this ever come out? And he said, maybe. So I don't know. What did you think, Tom?
Yeah, when I heard that, it reminded me of Bob Dean. I don't know. I'll just give a brief run-up of who he was. Bob Dean was in the military. He was in NATO shape. And when he retired, he talked about that he had access to, I guess, a Bible or some kind of an assessment, a thick book of NATO's version of what was going on with UFOs. Basically,
called the assessment. Yep.
Yeah, the assessment. And in there, and that's internet sleuths should go back and look this up now. Because if he didn't know this, then how did he say this 30 years ago and now we're hearing it again, right? So now we got to go back and revisit what he said, because you have clues to where this might be. He said that there was one UFO that was so big that when they got to it, they had to put a building over it. So my sense was this was in the U.S. So I'm thinking maybe there's more than two locations. One location, there's multiple. Who's to say that all these UFOs that crash or recovered or found are small enough to put on the back of a semi? It could be the regular that these fuckers are large. And, and a lot of them, they have to figure out, what do we do here? And then some of the smaller ones are good captures because they can take them and try to fix. Cosmic Watch is going on.
We got an alarm.
1.69. I didn't tell the viewers, but what we have are two sensors here in the background, and I'm talking about this. And this one is running the Cosmic Watch, which just put out an alarm that's automatic. And then over here is the same thing we have in Skinwalker Ranch, where we have we're monitoring 1.6 gigs. So we're trying to see if the alarm goes off at the same time we get a 1.6 gig here and we get a reaction. So anyway, let's cut back.
Tom's in Phoenix,
Big
everybody, so he's
Wait.
dialed
Hot
in.
as hell here.
Breaking news! Breaking news!
So go back to the Bob Dean tapes. Look through that stuff. He also, if that's real, then was what he talked about those different alien races real? I mean, he talked about one of them that looked just like us, and they could be walking around in the White House or the Pentagon, and no one would know. And that's one of the reasons they kept this hush hush. There's more than just the Greys. There's people like us that was in this assessment. So I'm thinking it's time to go old school and dig up some Bob Dean tapes, because maybe these guys were telling the truth the whole time, and everything's coming in alignment with the leaks.
It's another once upon a time for you there, Rob.
Yeah, we'll have to go ahead and parking lot that, and definitely we may be looking into that on the next show. And I agree. There's definitely got to be multiple species walking around, and one of them could be ones that look like us. Who's to say? With that being said, we have Mr. Danny Sheehan. So he was actually talking about the role in downplaying the real catastrophic dimensions of the information that he may be receiving, which he said is information that he would be attorney-client privilege, and the reason that the government is holding the UFO secret. So what he says here is that's the part of what the New Paradigm Institute is going to also try to develop. Some protocols, some principles to govern the rate at which this information is going to be revealed to the public. How are we going to do this? Is there any information in there that we think is going to have such a devastating repercussions that it would be contrary to the public interest to reveal that? Says, I can't at this point imagine exactly what they would be, unless, for example, you find all of a sudden that we really discover that our United States government's central intelligence agencies have been engaging in direct negotiations with these beings, for 25 or 50 years, and that they've authorized them to kidnap our people and do experiments on them. If that got revealed, nobody would have any confidence in our government ever again. That's the kind of thing they talk about. So, Danny Sheehan, I don't know, man. What do you think about that? I mean, a lot of people have been giving him flack lately, but and a certain podcast that tuned into stated that that he was not representing Lou Elizondo anymore. But in this interview, he actually said that he still is. So, what do you think about that, Mateo?
Danny's been around a very, very long time, and he knows things. And in fact, what he stated here, I believe, was kind of, he stated it as a hypothetical, when in reality, I think it is reality. So he's basically throwing these ideas out there as to what may end up getting revealed, and asking it as a form of a question or in a hypothetical way. What if the government said this?
Right.
And beyond that, from the bigger picture, I personally think that that's what the government is wrestling with right now, especially our Congress, right? The Senate and the House, and all that's happening with everything being on fire, as we alluded to earlier. They're trying to determine, well, how much can they reveal without creating a big problem? Because once I have to go back to George Knapp when he was in that when he did his weaponized podcast earlier this week with Jeremy Corbell. George made a statement like, it's stating only part of what is going on here with disclosure and confirmation is like being half pregnant or being partially pregnant. You can't have partial disclosure or partial confirmation, because once you say one thing, as Danny's talking about here, then the whole lid gets blown off, because 1,000,001 questions will follow suit. Like, if there is crash retrievals, then everybody's going to be like, well, who was driving them? Where are they from? Where are the bodies? What'd you do with the tech? Are we in an arms race with China over this? So this is really where the challenge comes in, and this is why I think they're going to have to go really slow here. And I'm not even sure what will end up happening, because of the fact that you can't do a partial release here without bringing down the whole house of cards. What do you think,
Yeah,
Tom?
yeah.
Well, by mentioning that there's a deal, indirect negotiations to kidnap people, I'm pretty well believe there was something like that going on. Oh yeah, yeah. What it was transactional. We'll give you something. What do you give us something? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and our government, every government looks as their population is just a pool of smart labor that's capital, like cows. We're just intelligent cows that go around till our bodies wear out and they replace us with another one. And that's all we are to them. And we don't mean nothing. So that I think something like that happened, but this is a bit much to start with going in this deep. I say try some more baby steps. That let's get the crash retrieval first, and then when we could get that confirmation, then we can go into the different aliens or whatever, the kidnapping. Trying to get all at once, that's too much. Let's just
Yeah.
get confirmation that there's non-human intelligence. These are some of the bodies. Here's some of the materials. Let's do some baby steps. Um, Going for the kidnapping deal. You can't prove that. How are you going to prove something like that? It's not going to be signed by this president and then the aliens card. What the fuck? So
Yeah.
that's a little bit much. But it's good that he's going and laser focusing on something. At least he's doing stuff. Most people are just bitching on their phones, waiting for somebody else to do something for them. So he's out
I agree. I agree. I mean, it is a bit much for those just coming in and focusing on this topic to be hit with some of the deeper things that may be going on. So I totally agree. I said that before. Just like when you're courting someone, you don't initially give them all the weird stuff in the beginning. You show your best foot forward. Then when you get to know them a little bit, then you hit them with all the weird stuff. So totally understand that,
Exactly.
and that's very factual there. So looking into this though, there's a lot going on. I mean, there's obviously talk everywhere in every corner of the media about disclosure in UFOs and what this may mean for humanity. So a lot of people take it serious, and as you know, we actually have these hearings coming up here. So we have the UFO hearings coming up, and I don't know if they solidified a date yet, but there was actually the bigger part of the bigger story, I'll say, connected to this was actually the tweet yesterday by Chuck Schumer. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that, and we'll talk about that. I don't know if you may not be aware, it's pretty big. So let's take a look at this. So Chuck Schumer tweeted, I'm introducing new legislation to declassify government records related to unidentified anomalous phenomenon and UFOs as an amendment to the NDAA, modeled after the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. And I'll go ahead. There's the New York Times story written by Julian E. Barnes. I took a couple pieces from that to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. So, as the article goes, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the majority leader, is pushing legislation to create a commission with broad authority to declassify government documents about UFOs and extraterrestrial matters in an attempt to force the government to share all that it knows about unidentified phenomena. The measure offers the possibility of pushing back against the conspiracy theories that surround discussions of UFOs and fears that the government is hiding critical information from the public. The legislation, which Mr. Schumer will introduce as an amendment to the annual defense policy bill, has bipartisan support, including that of Senator Mike Rounds, Republican of South Dakota, and Senator Marco Rubio, Republican of Florida, who has championed legislation that has forced the government to release a series of reports on unidentified phenomena. Support in the House is also likely. On Wednesday, the chamber included a narrower measure in its version of the annual defense bill that would push the Pentagon to release documents about unidentified aerial phenomenon. While the government has agreed not to call mysterious sightings UFOs, various branches and agencies disagree on whether to refer to aerial phenomena or anomalous phenomena. The Senate measure sets a 300-day deadline for government agencies to organize their records on unidentified phenomena and provide them to the review board. President Biden would appoint the 9-person review board subject to Senate approval. Senate staff members say the intent is to select a group of people who would push for disclosure while protecting sensitive intelligence collection methods. Interest in UFOs has always been high, but it has grown even more since a collection of videos showing unidentified phenomena recorded by the military censors was made public, and naval aviators described hard to explain events while on training missions. Some of the videos released by the Pentagon have been explained as optical illusions or drones, but others remain unexplained and the object of much speculation. Under pressure from the Congress, the Pentagon, and intelligence agencies have gathered hundreds of reports of unexplained phenomenon. Officials have said most of the unexplained incidents are airborne trash, Chinese spying efforts, or errant weather balloons. American officials have repeatedly said that none of the videos or other material they have collected appears to be evidence of alien visitation. It is hard to know how many unreleased documents exist in the government archives. Intelligence agencies have said repeatedly that they have released the material they have. Their Freedom of Information offices are constantly deluged with requests on material on UFOs, only to be met with responses that the archives have been released. Still more recent work, particularly by the Pentagon, has not been made public, and the reticence of some government agencies to produce records have frustrated both Democratic and Republican lawmakers, Mr. Schumer's staff members said. For example, various Pentagon task forces have conducted extensive studies on videos taken by naval aviators and other military personnel that have remained secret. Some work on the videos have been released, including at a recent NASA meeting. In some cases, officials believe disclosures could reveal the capability of classified optics and sensors. But in cases which no formal conclusion has been reached, officials have been reluctant to share information on their deliberations or theories. It is the reluctance to share all that is known about the incidents that are not completely understood that has fueled endless speculation on social media, in television specials, and public debates. Under Mr. Schumer's legislation, the president could decide to delay material the commission has chosen to release based on national security concerns. But the measure would establish a timetable to release documents and codify the presumption that the material should be public. Quote, "You now will have a process through which we will declassify this material," said Alan Biasotti, a spokeswoman for Mr. Schumer. Government officials have repeatedly said they do not have the remains of a crashed alien spacecraft or any manufactured material of extraterrestrial origins. Those assertions have been challenged by former officials who believe the government is not divulging all that it knows. The legislation would likely force more details of the government's study of unknown materials to be released, but it also gives the federal government the power to claim any crashed spaceships in private or corporate hands, however unlikely that such things exist. So, big news, right? Schumer is going to step in and put a bill together, or put an amendment to the NDAA to declassify government records related to unidentified anomalous phenomena. What do you think about that, Mateo?
Well, I think a lot, and I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer here, but we have to, there's two things here. First off, 300 days. Last year, it's July. Last year, in July, the House approved the NDAA, and the Senate had previously approved the Intelligence Authorization Act. Same thing happened this year. The Senate did their thing with the Intelligence Authorization Act in June, and we heard about Gillibrand stuff and all the stuff that had to do with no funding for SAPs, special access programs, if they didn't disclose what's going on in them, yada, yada, yada. Now we have this going on. The House passed today, actually, breaking news. The House passed the NDAA today. Now, there's an NDAA in the House, and there's also one in the Senate, and they don't come together and don't get merged with the Intelligence Authorization Act until late in the year. Remember last year, Biden signed the NDAA, which included the Intelligence Authorization Act, like a few days before Christmas. So,
Right.
300 days after that, guess what? We got an election next year. So I'm a little bummed out about the delay. I wish it was quicker, because what's going to be going on in November of 2024 is going to be mayhem. We all know that. So I'm a little bummed out about the delay there. So we need a little bit quicker, because this won't become law until the end of the year, just like last year. The second point is, what are they going to declassify? I mean, we've seen plenty of FOIAs over the years of things the government have documented that we managed to get declassified, that talk about UAP stuff. Has it really blown the lid off of the topic? No, it hasn't. And they're heavily redacted, right? Because they can't tell us sources and methods and all that stuff. So, this is great stuff. I really like it, but I don't know if it has enough teeth. I think some of the other things that are in the NDAA are more significant than this, and we're just going to have to wait and see. But I wish they had pushed it a little bit quicker, because 300 days is too long. Anyhow,
Well,
what do you think,
what do you
Tom?
think about that, Tom? I mean, Schumer is the most senior person in the Senate. We haven't had anyone at his level speak up about this yet. And then on the declassified piece, maybe he declassifies the 24-minute video that we've been waiting for of the previously released information. What do you think, Tom?
I I highly doubt any of that kind of stuff's coming around. You're right. He's the most high-ranking person that we've had talking about this. And it's just chipping away, at this is fake. There's nothing to this. There's something really going on here. But this is a slow disclosure. Mateo was saying 300 days. I mean, this is government kick the can. In 300 days, what'll come back is they'll rewrite this shit again and recreate the committee. They keep recreating the committee year. Now this new department will come here. Did they get funding? No. Did they have staffing? Not yet. So, and I'm going to tell you guys something I don't think anybody wants to hear. We're 20 years out from anything happening that we really want to see. I mean, we live in this environment where people are addicted to their phones and they think they can get it right now. Well, that's not happening any fucking time soon. 300 days and then they'll redo this. Somebody else will be Speaker of the House. The turtle guy shut shit down. I'm just waiting for a distraction to come. A big one. Like the military-industrial complex is not just going to hand over the goodies. This is like asking drug cartels to surrender and stop selling drugs and turn yourself in. This is a government within a government we're dealing with here, and we're trying to say, come on out in the open. Fuck no. The Pentagon and all these people in here, I mean, every director of the CIA and the NSA for the past 3 decades had to have known about this, and they kept their fucking mouths shut. They have all known. So we're going to have to go, you guys knew. You knew. And this guy and this guy. You're on top of the pyramid going down to the power structure. So they're not just going to come out and show us that 24-minute video. These will be breadcrumbs. I mean, I'll probably be 70 or 80 by the time we actually see that 24-minute video. I mean, it was 20 years ago that Tic Tac, 19 years ago, that happened, right?
True.
How much have we got since then? Not a hell of a lot.
Yeah, you make a great point there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just want to add one quick thing, Rob.
Sure.
The legislation hasn't bought us much. We had great faith in the 2023 NDAA, and as Tom was just saying, 300 days. Guess what happens next July? 180 days after this will get signed in December. A new NDAA will come out for 2025. It'll cause a complete recreation of the offices again, as Tom was just saying. So legislation is too slow and doesn't have enough teeth. I have more faith in the hearings that are coming in this. I'll shut up and let you go, but I just wanted to put that wrap on it.
No. I mean, you guys both made great points. At the end of the day, it's not in the government's best interest to get this information out. Now, I will say that as far as how this political structure is supposed to work, the people that are supposed to be rallying on behalf of the citizens, which would be the Senate or Congress people here, um, at least they're saying something at this point. At least they're trying
Yeah.
to it, and who knows if
Yes.
they have the ability to by using law force something to happen a lot quicker. And I think that's kind of where this is going. I think they're what it appears to be is that they're trying to put legal things in place to force things to come out. And that could be 20 years down the line that it does, or it could truthfully be sooner than that. I agree, Mattel, with the election that's coming up next year, that runs right up against that. But what the bright side of that is that it's going to force one of these candidates to pick this topic up at the presidential level. So one of these people who are going to end up being president next year will have this as one of their agendas, and that may expedite the process. So after we get someone into office, with all this rolling up to that point, we may have a candidate that has adopted this and will go ahead and get it pushed across the line from the government's end. However, we don't believe that. We believe that disclosure will come from the people before it comes from the government. But it is at least, a silver lining in that cloud. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree. I'll stay positive in that regard too. I agree with you, Rob. Let's hope that some candidate puts this in their platform, and between now and then, a lot's going to happen with the hearings and whatever else might come out, more whistleblowers. So we have no idea where we're going to be next year when we're in the middle of this presidential race. But I'm going to stay positive as well, and we'll just keep moving in the right direction.
I just feel like things are more just it's unprecedented the way that these lawmakers and officials are actually touching the subject. Like none of this has ever happened before on these levels. So it just gives you hope. Although you know how politics are politics, and we know how this could all turn around and go away overnight. And then to Tom's point, we're 20 years down the line with no further than we are today. So with that, do you have anything else to say on that, Tom?
Well, we've had plenty of people who have run for office for president and say that if they win, they've used this before, that they'll declassify it on the first day. And they also promise to legalize weed and all kinds of shit they never fucking do. We can go back to Jimmy Carter, who promised this. And then when he got into office, they showed him the stuff and he fucking cried. Okay. Then we had Reagan. I don't know if he promised it on the campaign trail. I was a little kid. But when he was pro UFO. He talked about, we saw one in his private jet. He talked about, what if in front of the UN, the famous speech about people coming together. Then we had George Bush after him, who was the head of the CIA. Again, looping back to what I said, he fucking knows. He knows this stuff. He kept his mouth shut, right? And then we had his kid. His kid was president for a while. And now, of course, dad's going to tell his son this. Then Obama, he said the same thing. Yeah, I'll tell you. When he gets out of office, he goes on talk shows. He goes, are there aliens? He goes, I can't tell you. All right. So he knows. And now he's on the record saying there's stuff flying around we don't freaking know about. None of them can say anything while they're in office. They have to retire. And all these guys from the DNI and all DI, the whole government soup can't say nothing when they get there, but when they retire, they can. So there's something they're told when they get there that will tell you a little bit, but if you say any of this, you're going to prison.
That was a great summary, Tom.
Yeah.
Nice
I mean, that's the way it went.
Right.
That's the way it went historically, and if history is if you compare history to current times, history sometimes does repeat itself. But I will just still point out the only thing that's different now is that other parts of the government are involved. At the time that those things went on, our Congress paid no attention to this issue of UFOs. They wouldn't even mention it. And these were questions that were asked straight to presidents on the campaign. So it's a little bit different now because there's laws that we now have in place with the NDAAs and all these different things. And all it takes is a law that forces some. And now the shadow government obviously don't apply because, and those are the guys that we know that are holding on to this stuff. So just to kind of play devil's advocate, laws may not apply to those guys, which they historically haven't. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Let me see what we got here in the chat. Magneticus is in the chat. And actually, I'm going to
ask the chat.
So, Magneticus, what is your view on this, man? Let me go ahead and get Magnetic. So, let me see here. He says, okay, I don't think that's related to this. What Magneticus? I'm asking the chat. How do you feel about this? What we're talking about? Do you think that this will be declassified? Do you think that that's a good step towards getting these things declassified? You can give us a short answer if you want to here. Nope, nothing for us.
No, he says he just replied.
No,
he said they won't tell you anything but candy coded lies.
Ah, okay.
Derek's in there.
Well, let me just bring that up because
I
this.
agree.
Ask the chat.
Anytime you hear that, that means we want to hear from the chat, and we would love to have you chime in and tell us what you think. So Magneticus says, yes, they won't tell us anything but candy coated lies. Okay, and that is his opinion.
There.
That is truth. I mean, just like I say, based on what we know and what we've seen, I mean, what can you would hope for different, but you know, it probably won't end up that way. But with that being said, that gets us out of the news. I want to say that is our last story for the news. So let me get us out of there. All right. Once again, we're going into the main topic, the main part of the show. And just like I just told you a minute ago, we now have asked the chat. So post a response to the question, and we'll be posing a couple questions later. So don't go anywhere to the live chat, or you can leave a message if you're watching on Team Replay. You can answer the question through comment, or you can actually call the message line there and leave us a message, and we'll go ahead and play it on the very next episode. So jumping into the main topic, we're talking about alien contact. What's the game plan? What is the game plan? So we have a couple scenarios here. Obviously, you see on the screen alien invasion. Then we're going to talk about alien visitation. So I have a couple things that we've written up. Now, just before we kind of jump into that, you know, we know that these things have been visiting us. We know, and we did a last show, which is Ancient Astronaut Theory. So we know they've been coming according to those texts, those ancient texts, for thousands of years. So in this current day and time, how would you deal, or how would we deal with either alien invasion or just a benevolent alien visitation? We're going to take a look at both of those things. Before we jump in, do you guys have any opinions on that? Like, what would be your thing that you would say to that, Mateo, for alien visitation, alien invasion?
Well, I know you're going to get into the details here, but I think as far as which one's more likely, I don't know. My gut tells me alien visitation is more likely than an alien invasion. I don't think at this point they could have invaded us long ago when we were shooting bows and arrows. Why wait until we've got more formidable weapons to do that? So that's my opinion there. But if an invasion were to happen, that actually might bring us together more than if an alien visitation were to occur. And by that I mean if we're all threatened, just like Tom mentioned Ronald Reagan's speech to the UN back in the 80s, if we're all threatened by some otherworldly force, that'll bring us together. Whereas if the aliens are just visiting and maybe giving people some droppings at different times in different countries, we might end up fighting over it with each other. So anyhow, we'll see how it plays out, but I know you're going to cover this more deeply.
Yeah, how about you, Tom? Alien visitation, alien invasion. Which one do you think is more likely? I mean, obviously these are both hypothetical things here, but
Yeah,
what would you go?
I would go with just visitation, not invasion. I mean, just looking at the picture on the screen, what the hell would they exactly want from us? I mean, do they want? They're not going to use our highways and drive on our shitty roads we don't take care of. They're not going to want to use our infrastructure we don't give a damn about. Do they want to work at shitty jobs at Amazon, and work for jobs with stagnant wages down here? I don't think so. I don't think they
came
want any.
50 light years to work at Amazon. No,
I think I need to rewatch that series V that I saw so long ago, and then see why would they kind of interact with us? Nah, do you want to work at this shitty job delivering packages? You came from all these light years away to fucking put 800 packages out at the end of the day. Shit, go back. They didn't want to go home. Was it shittier there then that this is better? But because I don't want to visit where you came from then. So yeah, no invasion. Just I think it's how do you invade a place that you've been living with 50,000, a million years?
Right. If they're occupying us, right. And we're going to pose some of those questions afterwards as well, because I have, just to kind of briefly kind of give you insight of what we might be talking about, the interdimensional and time travel and all those suggestions that people have made versus just travel from another planet here. So we're going to talk about that. But first, let me go ahead and jump into the scenario of alien invasion, and let's get some good background for this story here. All right. So, alien invasion. So we're going to go ahead and pose this we're going to do this in the story format. So, in the shadows of secrecy, a sinister truth lay hidden, a revelation that shattered the fragile trust between humanity and the world's government. An imminent, advanced, malevolent alien invasion loomed, concealed by those in power, plunging the world into maelstrom of disbelief and betrayal. As humanity grappled with this dark reality, the establishment of a global emergency response became their desperate attempt to survive. Amidst the chaos, governments, organizations, and military forces scrambled to establish a global emergency response system. Coordination among nations became a necessity, an attempt to salvage some semblance of unity in the face of impending doom. Swift dissemination of information followed, revealing the grim reality of the malevolent invaders and the desperate measures being taken to counter their impending onslaught. Yet transparency was tainted with the lingering sense of doubt, leaving the public questioning the motives behind the sudden urgency. Scientific and technological collaboration took center stage, but the trust that once bound humanity and their governments had been fractured. Scientists, researchers, and engineers were thrust into a precarious alliance, tasked with analyzing the invaders' capabilities, vulnerabilities, and motivations. The pooling of resources and knowledge became essential for defense and countermeasures, but skepticism lingered in the air as questions arose about the extent to which governments had concealed the truth, eroding the foundation of trust upon which their collaboration was built. Governments and military forces now shifted their focus entirely towards defense and strategic planning. Strategic developments were orchestrated to protect infrastructure, population centers, and vital resources. Investments poured into advanced weaponry, surveillance systems, and early warning systems, all designed to combat this malevolent menace. International cooperation, tainted by the revelation of governmental betrayal, stumbled forward, as nations struggled to reconcile the need for collective defense with the lingering distrust that hung like a shadow over their every interaction. Evacuation plans and humanitarian efforts were conceived amidst the fragile web of coordination. Collaborative efforts sought to relocate affected populations to safe zones, providing them with supplies, medical aid, and humanitarian support. Yet, the taint of secrecy cast a long shadow, leaving the desperate and displaced questioning the sincerity of their government's intentions. Coordination and logistics management were strained as the web of deceit threatened to unravel the fragile safety net meant to protect the innocent. Diplomatic engagement and negotiation, once seen as a beacon of hope, now stood as a battleground of skepticism. Channels of communication were opened with alien species, but the shattered trust made the path towards peaceful resolutions treacherous. International organizations such as the United Nations grappled with the weight of mediation, their credibility hanging by a thread. Doubt permeated every interaction as humanity struggled to believe in the possibility of redemption, and the line between diplomacy and betrayal blurred in the face of impending destruction. In the darkest hours, the preservation of knowledge and cultural heritage became a defiant act. Important records, artifacts, and information were safeguarded, protected from the ravages of the invasion. Yet the very act of preservation carried a bitter irony, as the truth of humanity's betrayal lay at the hands of those entrusted to preserve it. Institutions, libraries, and museums stood as hollow reminders of a shared history now tarnished by deceit and hidden agendas. Fear, anxiety, and trauma gripped the hearts of every individual as the invasion drew nearer. Psychological support services strained under the weight of a populace grappling not only with imminent danger, but also with the profound sense of betrayal. Resilience was tested as mental health professionals and community organizations fought to provide solace and guidance amidst a shattered world. Coping mechanisms were sought as individuals sought to navigate the treacherous waters of fear, anxiety, and the overwhelming sense of abandonment. In the wake of veiled betrayal, humanity found itself trapped between the malevolent alien invaders and the government that had concealed their imminent arrival. Trust lay shattered, and the path toward survival was marred by doubt and uncertainty. The fight for humanity's existence was not only against the alien forces, but also against the shadows of betrayal that threatened to consume them. In this dark landscape, hope flickered, its fragile flame kindled by the resilience of a broken world that refused to surrender to encroaching darkness. So, paints a picture, man. Scary place to be. I wouldn't want to be in that situation. You know, I'm hoping that it doesn't go that way. What do you guys think about that?
You painted a really good picture there, Rob. Great narrative. The talk of betrayal and dealing with all the ugliness of humanity and governments and distrust and past lying and past cover up, all when we're trying to pull together to fight the common enemy, right? This is your narrative went into that, and that's actually very true. That's gonna be a huge stumbling block if we end up in a situation where we have to pull together. It's not gonna be kumbaya, we're all one human family overnight. We got like a lot of ugliness to get past that is going to come out first, and then we're going to have to somehow look beyond that. Now, one of the things I've noticed is that, and you watch the movies and this happens all the time. In the movies, this is what usually emerges is one leader who manages to pull everybody together. I hate to say it, that's what it would take here. If right now we have a lot of things going on in our government that we were just talking about, where individuals are doing a lot of individual things, but there's no one focus, one leader who's going to come in and set it all straight. It would have to be the president, and we all know he's not going to be doing that anytime soon. So, in the event of a situation as you've described here with an alien invasion, we're going to have all this ugliness come out and betrayal and distrust and people being going crazy while we're trying to work with our enemies to fight these things. It's going to take one person to step up and cut through all of that in order for us to get to the point where we can actually stand up and put up a fight. That's my view, and a lot of people are going to suffer and perish in the process of getting to that point, I'm sure, but that's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, if this was the scenario, if we were confronted with the situation where, you know, it was imminent that they were going to invade, just looking at both sides. So in this case, if we were faced with a potential invasion, like what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like just like off of what Mateo said with the secrecy of the government leading up to disclosure, would you feel would you would your trust still be there for the government as far as trying to coordinate efforts to go against this?
You're muted, Tom.
That would depend upon why was this kept secret to begin with? Why did you lie for 90 years? If you don't have a hell of a good answer, then it'd be hard because that trust shattered. It has to be rebuilt. As far as fighting something like this off, we wouldn't stand a chance. I mean, our top military guys and our best jets and whatnot said we could do nothing against this. And like Mateo said, if they wanted to do this, they would have did it before we had nukes and we had poured all this goddamn concrete everywhere and kind of strip mined the planet. You know, they should have did it 100 years ago before we kind of wrecked the place. We're dug in well now. Humans are well dug in. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I think it's always going to be a mystery. I don't think there's going to be ever aliens live on Drew Barrymore's talk show or anything like that in any of our lives. I think it's always going to be something mysterious that we just say, okay, here's some bodies. Maybe we can get to that step. That's a step. But as far as invasion, man, that might be several lifetimes from now. At the speed we're going at, we're in a slow disclosure, which is a good one. Because if they were rapidly coming out and saying, you don't got 300 days, you got 3 days, then we're in deep fucking shit. This is deep impact level stuff now. Like, we got to get these people ready now because shit's coming. We're on a timeline. So there is no timeline with slow disclosure. So that's a good one. It's kind of a rollout.
And to your point there, I mean, that I guess that's the main thing is that what would we do? Like, do we even have a game plan? Like you stated, potentially we don't even have the ability to fight back. But it's there's a narrative out there where a lot of people feel like the interactions that we're having are benevolent and that there shouldn't be any reason to prepare for anything that may be worse than that. And I think that's a big mistake. So I think even if alien invasion is unlikely, I think we should still have a plan in case we ran across a malevolent presence. Now, to kind of add to that, there's been, talk obviously that there's different species out there, and potentially one species that may be benevolent is protecting us from a species that is malevolent. And so the only reason that we may not, even though they've been here for history, the reason that we may not have had a bad experience is because we're being protected. So in the event that they are no longer able to protect us, and then these malevolent entities are able to work out their plan, then I think we just have to have something on the back burner. And one thing that we look back on is, I think it was STS-75, the shuttle flight, where it showed that what was maybe a UAP going across and then darted back once the projectile shot out. So I would hope that the secret government, working with the black budget that they have, are using that money for planetary defense and not just terrestrial war, but against protecting the planet from things that may come from the outside. So hopefully that's something that they're doing, and that obviously would be something that would be classified that we wouldn't know about until the time came to use those sort of things. But I think that just being prepared, even if it takes 1,000 years and nothing ever shows up, but we at least I think need to be in a mind state where we can prepare for something that might actually happen. Hey, Terry Hall, you're right in time, actually. Thanks for coming through. We got Magneticus here. I know Derek Galloway was here earlier, and you're actually right on time. We just covered alien invasion, and some of the points from the story that we just went through would be the consideration for contact, which would be in a situation like this, establishing global emergency response, scientific and technological collaboration, prioritizing defense and strategic planning, evacuation and humanitarian efforts, diplomatic engagement and negotiation, because we're all going to have to come together globally in a situation like this, preserving the knowledge and cultural heritage that we have here on Earth, in psychological support and resilience as we go through something like this. So, with that being said, this is where we get into it as the chat. So if you can answer this question here, how would you handle the prospect of an alien invasion? You can always chime in if you want to. Terry Hall, how would you handle the prospect of an alien invasion? Magneticus, how would you handle the prospect of an alien invasion? What would you do? What would be your first step if you're able to chime in? You can go ahead and answer while we're waiting here, Mattel.
No, I'm curious what they're going to say. I agree with you. Just to your point earlier about the government having a contingency plan for this, even though it's unlikely. And I think your point about different races and stuff like that, alien races, some being malevolent, some being benevolent, is probably the reality. We've heard that more than once. Yeah. So there is a plan. There is a contingency plan. I remember years ago I had heard the UN had actually written a plan about what to do in case there was contact. I think Richard Dolan covered that years ago in a documentary he did. But I think there's got to be a plan someplace. And I mean, for me, I don't know. I guess I would offer my services, right? I would be like, hey, where can I help? I would be. Yeah. I mean, I don't have to protect the family. I have to protect me, and I would be offering myself wherever I could. That would be how. It's
a great point. That's actually takes it a step further, and that's actually a great point. So we got Terry Halls. There's a negative of forced invasion. Shoot first and ask questions later. Peaceful, roll a fatty and share. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Now we're talking. Now we're talking, Terry Hall. Okay. Perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the more lighter side, and hopefully what we have here. He said he'd gather all the homies and lock the bunker door. Hey, just let me in first, and then lock the door. Okay, there we go. So let's go ahead and get into the next one here, which would be alien visitation. So if you read this screenshot here is actually from District 9, where we saw what it potentially would be like with aliens visiting here, and then us commingling with these aliens. We didn't really treat them well, and hopefully that it doesn't end up being the case. But let me go ahead and get into that story here. So
they got Section 8 housing in that movie.
They did.
See, why the fuck would you want to come here unless they were screwed like in this movie? That's a great movie, by the way. Sorry to interrupt.
We set them behind gating. We corned them off into their own area, and there's parallels to what happens in the way we treat humans as far as that goes. So taking a look at this here, alien visitation. So in a world filled with curiosity and wonder, humanity eagerly anticipated the arrival of alien beings from a distant star system. Recognizing the need for preparation, humanity came together to establish a welcoming and peaceful approach for this historic encounter. With open hearts and minds, people conveyed their openness, curiosity, and willingness to engage in constructive dialogue. Leaders and individuals alike demonstrated respect for the visitors and their intentions, realizing that mutual understanding was the key to a harmonious interaction. Scientific and cultural exchanges became the foundation for this extraordinary encounter. Human scientists eagerly collaborated with the visiting alien species, forming a partnership that transcended interstellar boundaries. This collaboration facilitated the exchange of knowledge, ideas, and technological advancements, furthering humanity's understanding of the universe and promoting cultural enrichment for both civilizations. As communication with alien species posed unique challenges, experts from various fields came together to establish protocols for effective communication and understanding. Language barriers, cultural differences, and perceptual disparities were addressed through collaboration and the utilization of advanced technologies. Shared languages were developed, allowing for meaningful dialogue and fostering a deep connection between the two civilizations. In the spirit of fairness and mutual respect, humanity ensured ethical considerations guided their interactions. The autonomy values and cultural practices of the alien species were respected, fostering a sense of equality. Ethical guidelines were established to govern the exchange of information, resources, and technology, ensuing a fair and equitable cooperation. Vigilance against potential exploitation or unequal power dynamics remained a constant priority. Recognizing the significance of a coordinated global response, a governance structure was established drawing upon the expertise of international bodies like the United Nations. This framework facilitated responsible decision making, preventing any undue concentration of power. Collaborative efforts involving representatives from different nations ensured a diverse range of perspectives, promoting inclusivity and fairness. Throughout this extraordinary encounter, the preservation of Earth's ecological balance stood as a paramount concern. Humanity understood the need to prioritize the well-being of the planet and its biodiversity. Sustainable practices and environmental protection measures were integrated into the interaction, ensuring responsible use of resources and the long-term viability of the planet for future generations. As the alien species integrated into human communities, efforts to promote cultural and social integration were embraced. Interactions between the two civilizations fostered understanding, empathy, and friendship. Diversity was celebrated, and shared values were embraced, leading to a more inclusive and unified global society. The harmonious encounter between humanity and the benevolent alien species unfolded like a symphony. Through their welcoming and peaceful approach, promotion of scientific and cultural exchanges, establishment of communication protocols, adherence to ethical considerations, coordination of global response, preservation of Earth's ecological balance, and promotion of cultural and societal integration, humanity navigated this unprecedented event with grace and openness. The encounter became a beacon of hope, a testament to humanity's ability to embrace the unknown and forge connections that transcend the boundaries of our world. Together, humanity and the alien species embarked on a journey of mutual enrichment, furthering their collective understanding of the cosmos and fostering unity among civilizations. The story of this harmonious encounter would be told for generations, a reminder of the incredible potential that lies in the spirit of cooperation and acceptance. So that's how we hope it would go, and that's how it would go if the visiting species were going to be open to, you know, understanding us and figuring out what we're about. I think that's the human way is kind of what was displayed in this story here. What would you say, Mateo? Or actually, what would you say, Tom?
Whether they're benevolent or not, I think that's kind of a perspective. If there's a bunch of different species out there, which I think there are, some of them might not like us, and some of them might. I mean, some of them might view us as a bunch of nuclear-powered psychopaths. And, you know, watching those old Hitler tapes of war or whatnot, and some of them might think we have potential that needs to be unlocked. It's there. Don't give up on them. It depends. See, if this is their first rodeo, the first time a bunch of different species ever came on an Earth, well, yeah, they wouldn't know. But let's say they've done this over and over and over, planet after planet after planet, and they have experience. This is a journeyman process. They've done this multiple times. They've watched a planet unfold like we are, where we're coming out. And they kind of know what's going to happen. They're like, we've seen this before. These fuckers will blow themselves up. Or these are savable. Or we're rotten apples. So since they haven't blown us up and recycled this, I'm thinking we have hope. There's some good here. But do they really want to work with this? It seems like there's a prime directive where they just got to kind of have a hands-off approach and let us mature as our own species. Because I've always thought, if we get our hands on their UFO technology, we cheated in evolution. We skipped 1,000, 10,000, a million years.
Great point. Yeah.
Did they do that? Did they get where they're at because they cheated too? Did any of these fuckers out there that are millions of years old get there naturally, or did they get jumps? Is that normal? And out there? Oh, that's kind of long-winded, but
no, great point.
I love
great
that.
freaking point. Yeah, I mean, you really touched on some things that are eye-opening there. How about you, Mattel?
I always liked that prime directive in Star Trek, and what Tom was alluding to. And you bring up a valid point, Tom. Here's my take, and once again, I'm going to go down the path because I'm kind of, I'm not as, I don't give humanity the benefit of the doubt on this one, Rob. What you mapped out in that narrative, once again, awesome job, is what if you, me, and Tom were in charge, and our viewers were in charge of the world. That is how we would approach an alien visitation. We would collaborate. We would work together. We would embrace the technology. The UN would referee the thing and make sure everything went the right way. I'm sorry to say, my feeling, and this is why I think any sort of confirmation or disclosure that is maybe pending here, as we're all hoping, given what's been happening lately, I have a feeling the government is going to hold back because this knowledge from the alien visitation is more likely to start another arms race and a power struggle. The world is dominated not by people like us who have the greater good at heart. I hate to say it, but the world is dominated by people who are hungry for what? Power and money. And the idea of getting their hands on this stuff is going to overwhelm or prevail over the greater good. Now, there's going to be infighting with this, but we're going to have a hard time getting over that because, as Tom alluded to, we're not that advanced. We're still very primitive and primeval in our ways. I hate to say it. We are. I wish we weren't, but we are. We've got a lot more growing up to do before we get to the point that you described in your narrative at the grand scale. Right now, I mean, why are we having issues with China and Russia? It's all about power and money and dominance. We can't get past that. And we haven't been able to get past that. So that's where I feel there's going to be challenged. And if we can get past that, holy cow, then yes, all that you wrote about will happen. And we can definitely save the planet. We can end hunger. We can end issues with fossil fuels and energy and what have you. It'll be great. But we got to get past our own shortcomings first. And that, I think, unfortunately, is the taller order.
Yeah, makes total sense, and I love both of you guys' opinions there. I mean, essentially, especially what Tom just said about these things, could be gone from planet to planet and done this 1,000 different times. First contact with the new species, and they already have an expectation on how this may go. And then, looking at this, what I would have to say is, is the problem with this, with all this is that, like Mateo stated, the government is who would be representing us, and they don't have our best interests at heart. So this would be something. The scenario we just looked at would definitely be something that we would do as us as humanity, and this is how we would hope that it would go. Now, with that being said, the problem with everything is that we're gonna have to do either one of these things because they're here, and we haven't had contact. You know, I guess some experiencers have had their own contact, but humanity as a whole, we're still on the brink of first contact with these species, and it won't be through the government. It'll happen. I don't know how it'll play out, but we know they're here, and we know it's just a matter of there's very little in between us and them to the point of us having that first contact. So it's either going to be a great experience or it's going to be a not so great experience. So looking at this and just kind of going over the points here, the consideration for contact for alien visitation in a benevolent situation would be establishing a welcome and peaceful approach, scientific and cultural exchanges, establishing protocols for communication and understanding, ensuring ethical considerations and mutual respect, coordinated global response and governance, preservation of Earth's ecological balance, cultural and societal integration, and then, of course, we're going to ask the chat what would be the first step you would take in dealing with the benevolent alien species. And I think we had some few things here. I know Terry also said, Rob and the panel knows what they're up to. Empirical evidence, CE4, let me take a ride. And if Greer CE5 works, really works, he's a traitor no better than the military industrial complex for turning contact into a cottage industry. If you grew up in LA during the 80s and 90s, you know humanity is doomed. We're all doomed. Oh, I hope not. And let's see here. And I think that's all we got here. So, yeah, I mean, with that being said, that has been the presentation on benevolent, malevolent. We're going to go ahead and get into our next thing here. If I can maneuver through here, is going to be Once Upon a Time in Ufology. And the story that we're going to cover on that is going to be JAL Flight 1628. So this is a historic case where Japanese airline Flight 1628 had an ET or extraterrestrial encounter. We're going to go ahead and talk about that here. So JAL Flight 1628 was an incident that occurred on November 17th, 1986. This event involved a Japanese airline cargo flight en route from Paris to Tokyo, which reported a close encounter with the UFO while flying over Alaska. The incident began when Captain Kenju Teriyachu and Officer Takanori Tamafuji and flight engineer Yoshio Tsukuba noticed a large unidentified object trailing their craft. According to their accounts, the object was massive in size, estimated to be approximately twice the length of an aircraft carrier, and displayed a series of lights. The crew reported that the object matched their speed and altitude, maintaining a close distance to the aircraft. Faced with this unusual situation, the crew promptly alerted air traffic control, who, in turn, contacted military personnel at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska. The situation became even more intriguing when the two F-15 fighter jets were dispatched to intercept the unidentified object. The pilots reported visual confirmation of the object, describing it as a bright disc-shaped craft. The crew of the JAL Flight 1628 continued to observe the UFO for approximately 50 minutes, during which time they also reported additional smaller objects in the vicinity. Despite the initial alarm caused by the encounter, no hostile actions were observed from the UFO, and the object eventually departed the area. Following the incident, an extensive investigation was conducted by the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and the military. The crew members were extensively interviewed and their accounts were analyzed. The investigation aimed to determine whether the reported sighting had any plausible explanations and whether it posed a threat to air safety. Various theories and hypotheses have emerged in an attempt to explain the JAL Flight 1628 incident. Some skeptics actually suggest that the crew may have misinterpreted natural phenomenon or known aircraft in the area. However, most proponents of the UFO phenomenon argue that the credibility and experience of the flight crew, along with the corroborating radar, make it unlikely that the sighting was a case of misidentification. The JAL Flight 1628 incident holds significance within the realm of UFO research due to the high credibility of the witnesses involved and the extensive documentation of the event. It stands as a prime example of an unexplained aerial phenomenon witnessed by experienced aviation professionals. So, Mateo, Tom, you guys familiar with JAL Flight 1628? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, very much. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this case. It's one of the more popular ones that's in the UFO history. I don't know too many details about it. They probably said they saw Jupiter or something. I really don't know since I wasn't there, but it's interesting that they reported it and it got to this level, and it was probably a case that other pilots kept their eye on and said, "Well, if they're going to treat these guys like this, then I'm going to just keep my mouth shut."
Yeah. Stigma at its finest, especially back in 1986. How about you, Mateo?
Yeah, I like this case, and I've been trying to search his name, and I can't find it. Maybe one of you guys remember. But when Stephen Greer, at his first disclosure National Press Club event back in 2003, had the FAA investigator who followed up on this case, if you guys remember.
Oh, yeah.
And I forget his name, and it's killing me. And I couldn't find it in the 2 seconds we had. But remember, he had all the tapes and all of the radar and all the paperwork because he kept copies of this after the investigation was done. And it pretty much, it's for real. They encountered something, and it was the size of an aircraft carrier, as the captain of the airline or of the cargo transport did report. And so but of course, all that gets swept under the rug, and the guy from the FAA, who was very credible in his testimony, I really believed this case. I mean, skeptics will say, yeah, they were hauling wine from France to Japan, and they were all drunk on the wine, right?
Yeah.
You don't do that. Right, yeah. Tom remembers that part, too. But, yeah, I think it's a very credible case. And it's one of those things that if disclosure or confirmation ever happens, and all of the past records, like the Schumer legislation is going to ask for declassification on, if any of that comes out, this is a prime case. There's stuff that the government is hiding about this case still that probably would tell the truth as to what really happened. I really think this was the real deal, and it's a really good case in history.
Yeah. I mean, you can't deny, you can't discredit pilots, and a lot of people try to write off what it is that they saw when they're in the sky all the time. So they know what stars look like. They know what anomalies in the sky look like. So it's almost, a disrespect almost to even second guess what it is that they're saying here. So it kind of makes me upset. And with that being said, though, just another sticking point or another thing to celebrate about, which we're going to bring up here real quick, we talked about last episode, is that skeptics are only 21% of the public currently being polled. So when we talk about their opinions really don't matter much at this juncture, and they don't hold as much weight as I think a lot of people who didn't realize this you would think that the majority of people out there were skeptics, and that we had so far to go to kind of get people to understand that these things are actually happening. But as you see with the poll there, I don't think we have too much to worry about. So, with that being said, we do have our last segment here. We're going to go ahead and jump into that, which is science fiction to science fact movie edition. And what do we have for our movie today? Edge of Tomorrow. I don't know if either one of you guys are familiar with this movie.
Oh, yeah.
You seen it? Okay, yeah. Excellent movie, man. I actually saw it for the first time.
Really?
But yeah, Edge of Tomorrow. So you have
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. You have an alien invasion that has taken place, and actually, let me see if I can bring.
It's
something
got
up
Bill
on here.
Paxton on it, man.
Bill
Anything-
Paxton.
Bill fucking Paxton steals
Yeah.
the show in every movie he's in.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can go ahead and give the review on it, Tom, because it's
Well, they're actually working on a sequel, so that'll probably happen at some point. It was an interesting movie about how they're stuck in a time loop, being destroyed, and they have to get themselves out of it. This goes back to like a Star Trek Next Generation, I think, season 3, where the Enterprise was blown up repeatedly until they figured out they were in some time loophole that they had to get out of. And that one, that was a temporal distortion. And this one, it was aliens. And it's a fun movie to watch. And you know what's weird is a lot of this stuff, you look back, and you go, that was a movie. Was it? Or was it a documentary? Because now I'm starting to think that movie, The Thing, that might have been a little bit too close to the truth. That something was found in Iceland under the ice, and that was something that the Cold War might have discovered. And I'm thinking, why the fuck did Grenada get invaded? Was it really for the reasons they told us, or did something crash there they had to get out? In and out, And we just took that Titan sub off the bottom of that imploded sub, a day later? We scooped it up from Titanic level? Well, that means in a shallower water, we can get a UFO out quicker. It's not huge. There's a lot of stuff going on. It makes me re-question why we went to a lot of these wars we did. Was it really that reason, or was there something there that we had to get from them that refused to bow and give us the material? I don't know anymore. After 90 years of this, I don't know what to believe. Anyway, back to the movie.
No, it's just great, and I appreciate you going over that too. It's talking about the movie here, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, it's life imitating art, imitating life, and what came first, the chicken or the egg, sort of thing. So, it's we'll never know, because unfortunately we only have so much time to live on this earth as in this living state. So it'll be hard for anyone to have the definitive answer on anything. But with that being said, I know Terry Hall did pose a question. Do you guys think that now that we've got this far, the public shaming is gone? And what was your answer to that, Mateo?
I said I certainly hope so, but it's tough to say. I wrote that into the chat there. It's in what appears to be certain forums, dialogues, certain news outlets like News Nation, All of Us. There's definitely no more public shaming, but the mainstream media, they haven't quite come around yet. They're still playing the X-Files music. There's still some snickers and giggles every time the topic comes up, and that's why they're not covering it. So I don't think it's gone yet. It's close, but it's not gone yet, and unfortunately it isn't going to leave until the topic does break open and become mainstream media, and only then will it go away. But right now it's still, I don't know, I don't think anyone's safe, and there's other issues at play too, right? A lot of these whistleblowers are afraid to come out because they're worried about reprisals and threats of
Yeah.
their lives and their families' lives. So, yeah, the public shaming is still there.
Yeah, how do you answer that question, Tom? Do you think that now we've gotten this far, the public shaming is gone?
I like I said in the chat, I don't think it's gone. It's still going to be around for certain outlets. It's gone for some, not all. It's been lowered, that's for sure. This is a public discussion now. David Grush was brought up as the dude was bagging my groceries at the fucking grocery store, right? I went to Tombstone, Arizona 3 weeks ago, and when I was sitting there having a dinner in a saloon, the table next to us were talking about UFOs and aliens, and I'm just kind of overhearing this, just thinking, shit, man, this is mainstream. It's everywhere. So the stigma is melting like ice cream in Arizona, but it's a hell of an iceberg that's going to take a while to melt away. But it has lowered. I had a friend call me the other day, and he said, Tom, now that we have this whistleblower, does that mean we can stop sky watching and just coast? I said, fuck no. We're not. It's not time to spike the football yet. This isn't over. We still gotta. We're first and 10, but we still got a ways to go yet. And then when we get there, we got I told you so. And what are we going to do with people like Mick West and Mike Shermer and all these trash people out there who said nope all the time? What do we do with that? So we're getting close, but we're not there yet, and there's still a bit of stigma. But doesn't it feel like we're in a movie?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're in one of these Tom Cruise movies or something like that, and some of us are some of us are the Bill Paxtons, the side characters. Some of us are the scientists. Some of us the Jack Valets or the Jack Valets. It just feels weird. Like this is rolling out, and we're characters into this.
Mm-hmm. Hey, and Mission Impossible just came out yesterday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I gotta check that out. What I would say,
it actually came out Wednesday evening. I was in the parking lot near our theater, and I was like, "What is all these people doing here?" And people are streaming by, and big crowds. And I'm like, "Oh man, Tom's movie just opened, the new one." But I agree with you, Tom. We're in a movie right now. It's really it's unprecedented times that we're in, and it'll be real interesting to see where this movie script leads. It's coming soon.
Yeah, I mean,
Theater near
truthfully.
you.
With that being said, I mean, the public shaming is fading, and we got to give thanks to outlets like News Nation, The Hill, some of these national reporting organizations, global in some cases if you count the internet. So they are taking the subject seriously. They put out at least 5 reports on this every single day. They're keeping their finger on the pulse. Most of the information that everyone is getting about anything that's happening right now is coming through News Nation. So got to shout out them for that. Ross Coulthard as well for standing up there on the stage. Bryce Zabel said something. He put out like a 1-minute video today where he basically talked about what's next. Like, ufology and people in ufology, and this is something we say here all the time. People in ufology focus on getting people to believe that UFOs are real, but now we're at a point to where everyone understands they are real and what's next. And that's kind of what this show is all about, and why we do this show is for, to enlighten humanity and get us on the path here. So let me go ahead and get out of here, out of science fiction to science fact, so we can get ready to take it home here. And we do this, like I was just stating, for the positive progression of humanity. I think most people out there, most podcasts, most hosts of shows regarding the ufology topic should change gears. It's about more than UFOs and are UFOs real? What's in the UFO? How is humanity going to be affected by this, and where do we go next? And that's kind of what today's show was about, because contact is imminent. Whether it's gonna be invasion or whether it's going to be a benevolent situation, contact is imminent. And where do we go going forward as humanity? Before I turn that over to you real quick, I just want to say thanks to Dogface for coming through. I see you out there. Terry Hall, Magneticus, Derek Galloway, and then my guests here today. So yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it's inevitable, as you said, Rob, and yes, I may have sounded negative earlier about humanity's unfortunately bad behavior and unfortunate tendencies, but I do have faith that we can overcome that, and when we do, we will be all much better off. I mean, we have to really look at the positive here and make the world what it really needs to be. Otherwise, we're destined for self-destruction. There's no doubt about that. So I'm going to stay positive, and when the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to make myself available to help out, and in whatever way we can, whatever way I can, to bring it to the world, bring the tech to the world, and make it the better place that we all know it can be.
Awesome. And Tom King, do you have anything else to say on that subject or to the audience out here?
It does seem inevitable, but this has happened before in the past to other generations of ufologists who have passed on. So this is our moment. But we have social media now. We have the internet. We have phones. We have a different thing where we're dynamically connected, almost live as a species. Where in the past, what are you going to do? Take a Polaroid and have it developed? So there's hope with us. But we're nuclear powered shaven monkeys, and we're not all that good, but we don't use them. They're sitting there rusting in the ground. So we have that. We could blow ourselves up, but we haven't. So I don't think they're going to give up hope, or they would have just mopped the floor with us a hell of a long time ago. But even though it seems inevitable, I'm very, very worried. The military-industrial complex isn't, like I said earlier in the show, asking the drug cartel to turn themselves in. We have a government within a government that is going to have to go dragging and screaming and kicking for them to give up the goods and to end this. So I'm worried about a distraction. I'm worried about something that's going to hit the media that just gets this off the headlines, like a 9/11 type of event where the media just won't even talk about this. Or a nuke goes off in the Ukraine, and now no one will talk about this. I'm worried about the people behind this can change the channel of discussion very easily. They have this power to keep the secret. They have the power to do that. So I'm worried about what's going to happen in between now and then, because they're not going to go easily, and they're not just going to come into the sunlight. They're going to be dragged and kicked, and these people are fucking dangerous. They've been killing people since Roswell, and they're killers. These are fucking killers we're up against for disclosure. So this isn't a happy-go-lucky thing. We still have a hell of a fight in front of us.
No, and you're totally right about that, Tom King. I was thinking today, actually, it's a great point to make, because anytime you have progress in humanity understands that they can get together and make one big movement, then there's always going to be the distraction, and there has been lately. I pointed out on the previous show that as soon as this David Grush came out, the next day they put in the paper that Putin was threatening nuclear weapons, and then now that we have that didn't work, so it didn't take our our focus off. And they tried again. So even today, they had North Korea's in the paper stating that threatening nuclear war themselves. So that you're totally right about saying that, and that is going to be what they're going to try to go ahead and take our focus off of this. But to everyone out there, keep your eyes on the prize. That's right. Keep your eye on the goal. Don't get distracted by any of these headlines, because there is fluff. You know, they're simply doing it to get us to divide us and take our focus off of what we're doing. So with that being said, let me go ahead and check the comments before we get up out of here. Okay. Yep. So thank everybody for coming. I'm gonna thank everybody for coming again. And we have the viewer call-in message line. We're gonna talk about this every show until we get people calling in and leaving us messages on the message line. So that number is 856-843-3444. Put it in your phone. 856 the dig. We do this again for the positive progression in humanity, and want to thank everybody for showing up today. Even people on Team Rewatch. We love you guys. And remember, every time you hear Ask the Chat, we're looking for some interaction. So if that's it, let me go ahead and get us up out of here. It's been a pleasure. My name is Mr. Rob G. I'm the host of the Social Dig. We got Mr. Mateo here, the engineer at the Social Dig, and we got Tom King, TFK. He's just the man in general. So with that being said, thanks for coming out today. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.